Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Inget Zoom Series 31. Today, our guest is Professor Dr. Yasemin Bayyurt. Yasemin Hocam, has a very, very long biodata. So I don't want to waste our time because we all know her. That's why she's here with us, in fact. But very briefly, I want to just talk about where she is right now. She is at Boğaziçi University. She's a professor of applied linguistics there. She has published extensively on ELFAwareness and pre-service teacher education, native, non-native teachers and culture, mobile and blended learning, English medium instruction, and her current research focuses on methodological issues in ELFAwareness and CLIL in K-12 classrooms and blended learning in EMI universities. This evening, her title is ELFAwareness in ELT, Global Trends, Changing Paradigms. Yasemin Hocam, thank you again. Thanks a million for accepting to be with us tonight, and welcome again. The screen is yours, and we are all ears.
Thank you very much, Hocam. With your permission, I just admitted Sam in. He's my MA student. That's his nickname. That's why I was suspicious and asked him. So I admitted him. I hope he's here now. Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here today. And I'm so glad to see colleagues and co-authors and great friends around here. And it's a great pleasure. And last time I was with Ali Fuat in a panel at Inget conference about 2 years ago. It was another great event that I was, part of. And I'm really looking forward to those kinds of events, no matter how it's going to be, but I want to, have those. So today, I discussed with Aydan Hocam a couple of topics to include. And then she said, no, let's talk about ELF. So because the audience wants you to talk about ELF, so we would like you to prepare your presentation on that topic. So I've been doing so much since I started working on this topic, and I published a lot on this topic as well, but I wanted to revisit my journey to share with you today. So I thought, what would be more interesting for you? Then I decided to at least share with you what I have done, and then where I, came from and where I am at the moment. As far as teacher education part of my research is concerned, because normally I also explored, and recently we have a publication together with Ali Fuat on materials, for example, which is related to global Englishes, because ELF evolved from Word Englishes, EII paradigms, and became a emerging paradigm itself. And then now we have moved on to global Englishes, which is including all of them. And I won't go into that today. I will be simple and to the point, try to be simple and to the point, and share with you my experiences with ELF. Okay, so let's start. Since you are an informed audience, I'm not going to talk too much about the past and historical background of ELF, but I need to actually go from somewhere in order to come to where I am. Okay. So very briefly, I will pass through some of the topics that I've been presenting. I tried to kind of merge everything I have in my mind, and I decided to talk on my slides more than just giving you talk and passing through. And I would like to stop in some points to talk with you about these issues. So obviously, we all know that English has a global status in today's world, and it has been for a long time like that. And it has started before, actually, even ELF has emerged as a paradigm. So we can date it back to 1980s. Peter Stevens actually talks about English as an international language, even before that topics. But its arrival in Turkey took some time, And our realization of this topic also took, more time than we, expected. But it is, as you know, English as a foreign language, ELT as a field also has been, evolving and developing for the past 30 or 40 years, or, as a discipline. And it has started from English L1, scholars, the first emerging paradigms of ELT, and now we are moving towards a different direction. And I don't know what it will end at, but we are going towards really some changing times. So this is the first part, and then ELFAwareness in ELT emerged from the very Turkish context. Okay. I have to say that, although Sifakis has worked on this topic starting from 2004 onwards, he has never had a chance to implement his ideas in an ELT context. So when he talked about this with me, his model of teacher education, an alternative model of teacher education, he already had all these publications, 2004, 2007, and 2009 publications out. But the very first implementation of these publications came out of the ELFTED project, which in fact which was a very local project, and we worked with local Turkish teachers plus one Greek teacher who has become an ELF scholar right now. She's about to finish her PhD, Stefania Cordia, and she's more into in-service teacher education. In my case, I worked with Elif Kemaloğlu and Esma Biricik Deniz, who worked on pre-service teachers, which is more applicable to our context. If you go to some publications there, you will see, as university educators, you will see some implementations of this and how difficult it was at pre-service level. It is in Turkish context, or in context like Turkey, it is still difficult to implement it with English teachers who have already established ideas and thoughts about English language and English language teaching. So then we moved, ELFAware teacher education emerged out of this, in fact, Sifakis' earlier work and our ELFTED project coming to life. And it ended in 2017. As you know, everything has an end. But we had actually multiple publications to express our understanding of ELF and how it should be related to our context, which is a non-English speaking context, English as a foreign language context. Then we have applied for this. Our second aim was to apply for a European project. So we had this Enrich, which is an Erasmus project, came into life in 2018, which was 1 year after ELFTED was over. So we learned a lot from ELFTED project. So we tried to develop a completely kind of, not a completely different project, but a project which learned from its mistakes in the previous one. So the teachers found, for example, during the lifetime of the ELFTED project, teachers were bored with lots of readings. They actually quitted. We had 35 teachers in the beginning, and we ended with 11 teachers at the end. They were too long, and the ELF was a difficult concept for them to understand because it was too philosophical, and we didn't know how to connect it to classroom context. But these 11 teachers who continued till the end of the first phase of the project gave us lots of miracles, which in fact encouraged us to continue with this idea of ELFAwareness as a concept, because earlier it was transformative learning theory of Mezirov, which was again a little bit, we had interesting journeys, adventures with transformative learning theory. And you can't imagine what some of the teachers reported about this transformation aspect of their students. It was amazing. Like, some of them completely changed into, they did not maybe change their mindsets about English, but they realized about their identity as a person. And they decided to have some life decisions and so on. So then we decided to change our ideas. because I told Nikos that, look, if we continue with this transformation idea, it will go towards something called, I don't know, brainwashing or something like that. We don't want to do that. Okay, what we want to do is, in fact, bring into teachers' perspectives a different paradigm, a different way of seeing their profession. And plus seeing English as not as a subject to teach, but as a lifelong skill to learn, okay, for their learners. Because in my opinion, as a sociolinguist, essentially sociolinguist, and an ELT educator, I can say that all languages are part of our repertoires, linguistic repertoires, and we activate them for our everyday needs whenever it's necessary. This actually, being essentially a monolingual context in Turkey, we don't realize the merits of being multilingual or bilingual and how people relate to those languages and how they shift from one language to another and how they construct their identities in relation to these different languages. So it's very difficult. It was difficult for me to understand and to internalize all these concepts as well. It's not easy for anybody to, okay, now convince me. First convince me, then we can go and talk to other people, talk to teachers. And what we found was, it's very difficult to convince teachers, and teachers don't want to go out of their comfort zones because the other one is risky and they want to stay with their, okay, these are all experimented, we all know about it, and we are protected by native speakers. Again, we were, very much into this zone of, how can I say, comfort zone, where we don't want to learn, we don't, maybe not to learn, but not to risk certain things. But you can see how we can, with small steps, with baby steps, we can actually show teachers how useful these ideas are and how they can benefit from experimenting with different ideas and how this can help their learners to become effective users of English. Because why do we teach English after all? We want our learners to use English. Anyway, so this is the point. I just don't want to keep you. Yes, we did talk about English, and English is necessary for global communication, for movement, for mobility, and so on. And it's a passport to access to worldwide life. And this was, as I said, has been around for a long time. And nowadays, I'm also interested in English as medium of instruction in higher education, together with Khalil in K-12 schools. And the reason why I'm interested in those, again, is related to introducing learners English through a meaningful context. Actually, now, after I did my ELF-related research, I understand what much better, I can say, I have to confess, what is meant by engaging your learners with meaningful content. So this gives me, Khalil actually, in fact, gives your learners meaningful content. And while doing that, you turn them into ELF. Actually, you enable them to use English. And you are, of course, responsible for the input and how it is processed in the classroom, but you are not really in control of the output, what comes out of what you teach in the classroom. So what you don't know what the learners are doing with what you teach them outside the classroom. And nowadays, they are engaged with English all the time. So what you do in the classroom should very much be related to what they are actually experiencing, so that your target, or even though you have objectives, language objectives, your target will be enabling them to use English. So anyway, these are all the ideas that, in fact, were introduced earlier through Crystal and Mackay and many other great scholars. And as non-native, in quotation marks, I don't like this terminology, English teachers, we are, and maybe we have here English L1 teachers, like Amanda is here, I shouldn't be saying that. So we are, also, we are powerful since we are in control of this culture and the students, more or less students' first language background. Nowadays, obviously, maybe in the next year or in the next few lectures, we need to also include multilingualism aspect that is emergent in our context as well. So I don't know how many of you in this group have multilingual students in their classrooms, immigrant students, for example. Is there anybody in this classroom? Or is there anybody living in a neighborhood in which you have immigrant people? Anyway, I want to talk about these maybe towards the end of our session, because please think about these issues. These are going to be influencing the way we teach in our classrooms in the near future. It's not too far. So these are all the ideas. And obviously, as we said, Englishes are changing, and it's very difficult to, not to talk about Turkish English, because many of my American or British colleagues who are working at my university are talking about there's really a Turkish way of using English. I don't want to call it Turkish English, but it is Turkish English. But obviously, it's still English, pretty much closer to one of the standard varieties, which is predominantly British and American English in the Turkish context. But we give ourselves away with these. And it is very nice to have a chat with, for example, a teacher, especially a writing teacher or a speaking teacher, who is an English L1 speaker, like an American or British L1 English speaker teachers. And their way of looking at, the way we use English is definitely definitely in the direction of admitting that there is a Turkish English, in quotation marks. Somebody asked me some time ago, I want to, share this with you. Will there ever be a variety called Turkish English? And I said, I want to also follow the chat, but anyway, I want to finish first. And I said, I don't know if there will ever be a legitimized variety of Turkish English, but there's definitely one already. We, in fact, give ourselves away through the way we speak, through the way we produce sounds, use the vocal organs, or intonation patterns. Actually, there is one, but it cannot be legitimized, because in order to do that, in the world English's paradigm, people like the dear friends try to, in fact, develop some legitimized varieties of some like Russian English, Japanese English, and so on, which were never colonized. Those countries were never colonized by British or American military powers or powers, but colonial powers. But they still try to develop a legitimate variety. And ELF, in fact, started like that as well. They tried to develop a variety, which was called ELF. It is not a variety, okay? This is the first definition, first phase of ELF research, which I'm not going to talk about. I don't want to be too theoretical today. So, but I just want to give you my understanding of ELF and my development. So, as I said, there is one already, Turkish variety of English, but I don't think it will ever become a variety. Maybe we can discuss it during the question and answer case. So, this is a slide that we use with Nikos in different publications and different presentations. I like this very much because in this one, we talk about the difference between an EFL learner and a post-EFL learner, which in fact falls into the area of ELFAwareness research. So in the EFL part of learner's life with English, I remember my experiences in 1980s when I started when I became a teacher and a teacher trainee at that time. It was identical to user's life, and there was no English outside the classroom, almost. They had no experience using English unless they were living in Bodrum, okay, or Antalya. I don't know, some touristic places. But even in Istanbul, if you didn't live around Sultanahmet, or you didn't make every effort to go and find a tourist, grab a tourist and talk to them, it was highly unlikely that you would meet an English-speaking person. So in the classroom, they were preparing themselves for standardized exams, and they had native speaker as a model. And there, as I said, they had no user life as long as I was concerned, because I was like that when I was learning English. So I have reference to myself. Maybe other people had different experiences. Post-EFL, we are in the post-EFL era now. And in this case, a student's life is non-linear, and it's different from user's life. Although you still have native speaker as your model in the classroom, and you still prepare for taking standardized exams, you still have a life outside the classroom through gaming, through social media sites, and so many other things. And I recently learned from some secondary school students that they learn English through these Netflix videos very well. And I have an MA student in one of the courses I teach this semester, and he told me that he learned his English from games. And he has completed, and when he took the university entrance exam, he had a very high grade with this English. He said, I'm sure he studied to turn it into, a successful one in the exam, but still he learned it from there. So as English teachers, we should be aware of this, and somewhat we should find a way to integrate it into our lessons. So obviously we are at the moment in the COVID era, and in this era, we have all those students in front of the computer, and we are introducing them lots of games, references, online sites to practice, to learn their English. And in some cases, they do find it themselves. So it is going to be definitely different after the COVID era. And maybe this lecture will be even different. I mean, we have post-EFL, maybe we'll have a post-COVID era. At the moment, we are going through it. And unless we do research, we may not say much. But I'm sure we are all experiencing somehow. And I'm really curious what teachers are doing at this time. Okay, definitions of English as a lingua franca. Obviously, there are at the moment, English as a lingua franca is defined in a different way, and we are in the movement of going towards a new paradigm. But these are still legitimate relations. It's a shared language, okay, and it was said in the European Union documents. English is an inherently multilingual language and means of English medium communication, because they have obviously in the European Union many multilingual states, okay? And in those states, there are different ethnic people, and they have different languages. And in my mind, I have the reference for Spain, okay? And in Spain, there are four different actually, ethnic groups, and Catalans continued today. And it's pretty multilingual a region of Spain as a country. And then Basque country, again, they maintain their language. And there's lots of research going on in these areas. And so they have in their minds these kind of contexts. And when they talk about English, there are really interesting publications of those people like Enrique Lourda, Laza Bagaster from Enrique Lourda from Catalonia, David Laza Bagaster. I think the first name is David. I'm not sure. I forgot now. But I know his last name. He's from the Basque country. They have lots of work on university student studies. Okay. So earlier definitions, says that in English as a lingua franca, English is seen as a shared common language. It's inherently multilingual. Different lingual cultural backgrounds use it in order to communicate, negotiate meaning, etc., and work and use it in different domains. And it represents, obviously, professional success and social inclusion. And Jenkins actually, furthermore, introduces in 2005 a new term, which is very much inspired by recent research, I can say. And she calls it English as a multilingua franca. And she says it is a shared common language in multilingual communication, in which English is available as a contact language of choice, but is not necessarily chosen. So when we are in a communication situation, we activate different repertoires we have. So I speak, for example, French as a third foreign language, Spanish as a fourth, and then I learned other languages in the way, and I have an ample understanding of Greek and some Italian and some other languages. So when I'm in a context where I have nationals of these countries, I activate those, these knowledges. But the way I activate them changes, and I seem to use all these repertoires the way I can. Okay, so. But English is the main language of contact there. So these are actually some of the contexts they are referring to. And I cannot explain it in another way because I'm not I don't have an ethnic background. I don't speak any home languages other than Turkish. So I am definitely a Turkish-English bilingual, I can say, sociolinguistically. All the other languages, my French is horrible, but I can still understand. And if I am forced, I can speak. I can read and write in French, but the problem is I don't want to use it. But when the time comes, it comes out. But my English is predominant. So in a way, this is the context. I'm sure you have similar contexts like that, unless you have an ethnic language, home language. Okay. So in fact, just to confirm what Jennifer Jenkins says, I exemplified before I told her. I told you what she says. She, in fact, talks about the true nature of ELF is this: English is a multilingual franca. And it's all-inclusive. And as a majority of ELF users are multilinguals and who may choose to move strategically in and out of various languages. Okay. And this is very much similar to a term that was coined by Garcia V. Kanagaraja in earlier times in different ways. And there's now a new field of research, translingualism, translanguage. This reflects translanguaging, but it is different. There are essential differences between the two terms. And since this is not the focus of my talk today, I'm not going to go into this, but English is a multilingual franca and translanguaging are essentially different, okay? The main difference as I understand, can say, is translanguaging is occurring especially in natural language use contexts, whereas EMF is occurring in more domain-specific contexts like business, education, and so on. Okay, but the other ones, like when I talk about translanguaging, where did it emerge as a term? It emerged from North America, and the context is different. Please, this is very important. When you are, in fact, interpreting these concepts, think about the context, okay? So this is not the concern. I'm not going to go into this too much. So how did we define ELFAwareness? With these in our minds, we said the process of engaging with ELF research and developing one's own understanding of the ways in which it can be integrated in one's classroom context through continuous process of critical reflection, design, implementation, and evaluation of instructional activities that reflect and localize one's interpretation of the ELF construct. What do I mean by this? Actually, we have been experimenting with these items separately in different research projects. And critical reflection was our first movement, first idea in implementing ELFTED project. We wanted teachers to have a look at their materials and find ways of turning them into ELF-aware materials, integrating this new changing paradigms of English into their classrooms, okay? As a domain-specific language use or however they perceive it, but turning them into more, everyday use, more, how can I say, language aware, turning to their students more language aware and moving away from the idea of English is a subject to teach. English is a lifelong learning skill to be acquired in school as they learned Turkish. But I don't mean anything to do with, I don't have anything to do with depression or second language learning acquisition theories. I don't mean that. It's a completely sociolinguistic approach. So design, implementation, evaluation of instructional activities may refer to methodologies like as I said earlier, CRIL is a very good context. CRIL classrooms can be a very good context to observe ELF use in the classroom, and maybe seeing it from that perspective. And then implementation, evaluation of instructional activities and materials is another one. Looking at language teaching materials, we have done, again, similar projects, and we compared Turkish course books with Portuguese course books in terms of their content, and we tried to find some ways of integrating ELFAwareness aspect into in fact these books. Unfortunately or fortunately, it's changing, we can say, because nowadays we have this global English perspective. I think it's going to make a change in the sense that people will understand and appreciate the concept of ELF and how it can be integrated into their English language teaching context. Okay, ELFAwareness is realized in 3 different levels. One is language and language use level. The first level, this is what we know about language, its structures, its lexicon, and so on, and English and its use in different contexts. Okay, and the second one is instructional practice. What we teach in the classroom, teachers' realization of the classroom activities and how they present their learners these activities. Like you bring into your classrooms lots of reading, lots of, let's say, dialogues, authentic materials, and so on. But do you ever include a dialogue between, let's say, a Spanish English speaker and in New York, in a restaurant, talking with a waitress who is from India, and using these 2 varieties, and a Turkish teacher witnessing it and not understanding anything from that dialogue, and then turning and asking her colleague next door, how did you understand? And then obviously what's emerging out of this? She understands that there's this thing called accommodation strategies. So this person has been to that restaurant so many times that she knows, she's familiar with this waiter, and then that's why she can understand. And our Turkish teacher isn't aware of this, isn't familiar with this, accent and this variety, maybe we can call. And then another thing is, and then she says, well, I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher for the past 30 years, teacher of English for the past 30 years. I've never come across some example like that. And I thought I knew English very well. What's happening? And then she turns into her classroom and she realizes she never teaches such English to her learners. And this teacher was in the first phase of our ELF project, and she started to bring into her classes TED Talks that were given by non-native speakers of English. And also she selected some interviews with Spanish background, Mexican background, American actresses speaking with a Spanish accent as examples of interviews, and while teaching interviews to her students. So she, in fact, changed this. This is, again, a baby step, but an important realization for the teacher to bring into her classes different uses of English around the world, as far as spoken terms are concerned. And the third one is the most difficult part of ELFAwareness. This is awareness of learning, and very difficult to collect data from, actually. There isn't much research in this area, but people are, again, looking at learners' take on ELFAwareness, and we will be having some future work presentations on that topic as well. So this is how students use English they learned in the classroom, and how this is reflected into classroom teaching materials, and what they learn and what the output will be. So this is, as I said, the third level, and our teachers actually did not talk about it much during the project, and we turned to learners, and that's how actually I learned. These learners are, in fact, especially we collected data from primary and secondary school students, and with the primary school students, which is 5th and 6th grades, we did conduct interviews. And during these interviews, what they said was striking. They said their materials were crap. They don't want to learn. They don't want to read those books in the classroom. English classes are very boring. And when I asked them, how can you speak English so fluently? They said, oh, we all the time watch Netflix videos. We play games with our friends. And luckily in that school, they had immigrant students. And interestingly, no Syrian students, by the way. We had Russian, Russian, Sudanese, Iranian, Afghani students. Obviously, Russian students were bilinguals. The others were immigrant families. So these Russian students were Russian mother, mostly Russian mother, Turkish father, and they all wanted to speak in. The school, when we asked for help, they enabled us to have groups of students from different backgrounds, different linguistic backgrounds as well, together with the Turkish students. So we prepared 2 questionnaires, for example, one Turkish, one English, and they actually preferred to speak English. So that's why I realized how fluent the Turkish students were. And I realized that having multilingual students, this is my dream actually, having multilingual students will improve our Turkish learners' English, no matter what their teacher are, who their teacher is actually. So this was my dream come true when I was talking with them. And it can happen actually. So they were so angry with the books. They were fond of their English teachers. And they know their English teachers had to teach them for this entrance exam. So they understood why they had to follow this. But they said they are boring. They didn't feel that it was going to be a trouble, but they went into their classrooms and wrote books and showed us, etc. So it is, I think, a changing times, and it is very valuable experience for learners to have people from other languages as well. So actually, I'm running out of time. I don't want to go into too much detail anymore. So these were some of the questions we had in our minds when we were doing the 2 projects. I want to show you some highlights from the projects I've done. We, in fact, questioned, is there a place for ELFAwareness in English language teacher education programs? And how is both pre and in service? And how is English conceptualized in English language teacher education programs and English language literature courses, for example? What types of professional development models for effective English language teaching are introduced in these programs? And my answer was, with all these, and from what we received, the responses we received from the teachers was, we still have a very much native speaker oriented English teacher education programs. There is no problem with that, but we can still introduce them. These word Englishes paradigm concepts, global Englishes paradigm, ELF paradigm, we can actually open a window in their minds, and we can allow them to situate themselves in the English-speaking world as whoever they want to be, okay? I want to be a Turkish English speaker, for example, despite my background, okay? I lived in Britain 5 years, and then when I was in high school, I lived in an American English-speaking context. I went to an American school. But when I came back to Turkey, I wanted to kind of construct my identity as a Turkish English speaker. As long as I was intelligible, it was fine. So this actually, we should allow our learners to develop this kind of sense of belonging and identity, I think. So this is important for me in all these programs. So these were some of the responses, some of the questions we asked, and some of the responses we received in relation to English belongs to. Who does English belong to? There were some readings about this. English is a global language. What we meant by that? What is meant by English as a lingua franca, world Englishes? Native speakerism as an ideology and as a paradigm. So what happened in the past and what are we facing today? And how we can get rid of this native speakerist ideology and open up our minds, our worlds to a different paradigm. Teacher identity is important. This morning we were discussing in one of my group sessions, saying teachers can construct their construct their identities as they like. If they want to sound like British, they can, no problem. If they want to sound like American, they can. But what we are against is, please give your learners an open mind. Show them that even if you can't produce English, even if you can't imitate British or American accent, whatever you say should be intelligible, so that you can be at least understood by, other speakers of English and Turkish speakers and native English speakers in quotation marks. So in a way, we can develop this sense of ideas. And in order to understand how these were realized in relation to teacher education programs, we have carried out, I have actually been involved in two major projects in relation to these topics. The first one is ELFTED project. And initially, as I said, we were into transformative learning theory, and then we changed our mind. And the second one was Enrich project. And in the first phase of the ELFTED project, we worked with in-service teachers. In the second half, we worked with pre-service teachers. Enrich project was based on pre-service education, and we have developed, as I said, two sets of data there from learners and teachers, but we mainly focused on developing a continuous professional development portal for teachers, which were based on our earlier implementation of similar projects like ELFTED, and there's one in Greece that was also developed by Stefania for her PhD studies. Okay, so this is my journey. My first encounter with ELF was in 2008 in the first International Conference of English as a Lingua Franca in Helsinki. And this was brought into my attention by late Professor Alptekin. I want to actually remember him kindly. So he was the one who, Aydın Hocam, he was the one who introduced me to this paradigm by destroying my very first article on culture in early 1998. and he putting into my ideas, putting in all those ideas into my mind that Arifat very nicely worked actually earlier in his early work on non-native educators, but that was brought into my attention by Cem Alptekin in 1997 or 1998. And it took me some time to internalize all these. So the first one was in 2008 when I realized, yeah, ELF is something that I should investigate. And then in 2012, we in fact organized it in Turkey. Again, thanks to Cem Alptekin. It was so early. I'm so glad we did it at that time. It brought into our, in fact, Turkish land, this ELFAwareness concept. It was born out of this conference, because this was right after this conference when Nikos Sifakis told me that, why don't we do this? Because you have such an interested audience. We had 350 people attending the conference. We couldn't find place during the plenary talks. So I think after seeing this interest, he thought maybe it would be a good idea to start it from Turkey. So I'm glad that Cem Alptekin proposed this in 2010 in Vienna and turned Jennifer Jenkins and Barbara Seilhofer and Anna Maurinen mad. They were very angry with him. But we managed to have it in Turkey. So I was the head of the department at that time, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we have never talked about this. Of course, we can do it," I said. So it was an interesting. So they didn't allow us to have it the next year. It was in Hong Kong, and then the fifth one was in Istanbul. I again want to remember Cem Alptekin for, in fact, giving us this chance to open up to the world. Anyway, then it goes on like this. I've been in these conferences for a long time, and I've talked about ELFAwareness in various conferences. Okay, these are, as I said already. And the beginning of was, as I said earlier, on Mezirov's transformative learning theory. Nowadays, as the dean of the faculty, I talk about this theory. I actually gave it up when I decided to turn this into an ELFAwareness concept. But I always talk about this. We need to adopt a transformative perspective into education. We need to be open ourselves up to new ideas for teacher education. I nowadays have crazy teacher education models in my mind. I don't know whether they can be realized in my lifetime or not, but after my term is over, I want to go back to my research and my students and work. But at this moment, I'm so fed up with traditional models. Everything is the same. It seems like everything is repeating itself to me. So this transformative learning theory is very good in order to show that, yeah, you can have some crazy change ideas, but take them one step at a time. It takes time when it comes to adult education. And thanks to Mezirov, we know a lot about this. So in this case, we need to be very patient with teachers, and it takes time. Okay. So in our earlier project, we had 150 teachers. During the pilot phase, we ended up with 11 teachers. And this project was essentially distance learning actually project initially, but then I turned it into face-to-face. This was also, again, my idea. I'm writing this up as a paper right now. I can share it with the audience if you want, my journey with that. So I added this human perspective into this project because I told them you cannot have a complete distance. Sedat Hocam, are you here? Complete distance teacher education project. How are you going to implement workshops and so on? So I added this face-to-face component fortnightly. Anyway, it was good. And this was some of the outcomes. And this was our, at that time, portal. So it was real. And then we came to Enrich project, English as a lingua franca for inclusive multilingual classrooms, because times were changing and we needed to implement this. Hocam 5 dakikam kaldı değil mi? I have about 5 minutes left, I think. Okay. So
Hocam,
over here, the idea was how
whenever you feel tired, of course you can stop, but we are so happy to listen to you. So don't feel pressured, just keep talking. But if you feel tired, you are more than welcome to stop.
No, I just want to talk about this project as well, then I will stop. I want to introduce you.
Sure.
I want to give credit to teachers, actually. So I want to mention them and then finish. Okay, so this was actually based on a systematic needs analysis. As I said, we have also collected data from learners, and we wanted to see their understanding of what's going around them with English. And what we found out was amazing, because they are really they are more ELF-aware than we think they are, okay? Although they don't call it ELF, or they don't necessarily relate it to any terminology, since they are only young people and in schools. So it is amazing. And we have in this project, we have people from, obviously we have 5 countries, I haven't included here, from Portugal, Italy, Norway, Greece, and Turkey. So from all of these countries, the common point was they are more ELF-aware than we think they are, okay? And I think obviously having migrants is a very enriching experience, but because we put migrants in the research proposal to ministry, it was rejected. So we couldn't use the data we collected from the high schools at that time, because we had put their migrants. It was our mistake. Anyway, but at least I can talk about it. I'm so amazed at it, and my niece is going through similar stages. And then we have developed again another portal in which we had this time, instead of articles, which we had in the ELFTED project, we prepared presentations based on topics we want to include in the continuous professional development course. And we have actually put activities right after these presentations. And we had both the PowerPoint, is it called voiced? What is it called? I don't know. But PowerPoint, we had it also in PDF and also in the, I don't know what it is called, Sedat. Or can you please help me?
Voiced over?
Voiced over, yes. Yes, thank you. So we had voiced over presentations in which people had more than what was in the, like it is as if expressing this presentation it's like this. Actually, I'm presenting this to you and I'm adding my comments and so on. It was like that. And then we put transcriptions in case teachers had difficulty in understanding some of the comments. And then underneath we had activities together within the PowerPoint slides. We had activities as well. So it was much more engaging than this. And we had obviously forums and so on. And we have, in fact, planned it to have face-to-face meetings with teachers. But unfortunately, COVID, in fact, pandemic broke out. And the Turkish team was again lucky because we were early to have our multiplier event and also the first meeting, face-to-face meeting with our teachers at the university. And it was before the pandemic, almost before actually, beginning of February. So, and our multiplier event was 22nd of February. So we had everything, how can I say, face-to-face up to that point. And after that point, everything turned into, obviously, online. But we were lucky to have that. And it was, as I said, blended learning. We had both, obviously, we had meetings, regular meetings with the teachers. I call, actually, I'm writing a paper at the moment, and I call this interaction, giving a lecture, just like I resemble it to a face-to-face lecture, for example. But obviously, in a virtual context, with virtual participants are there live, but they are not really here. So in a way, it was like that, and both synchronous and asynchronous. And I've twisted those terms a little bit, but still blended because they had to spend time on their own, and then they had these meetings where they could ask their questions. And we are in the process of developing the handbook, which is about to finish, and it was continuously evaluated and disseminated. We've given lots of lectures, and I even developed a side project from this. Maybe you are aware of my linguistic landscapes project, which in fact emerged out of my earlier work in my sociolinguistics courses in relation to this multilingualism awareness. And I think and there's a wonderful project going on at Dicle University directed by Osman Solmaz. They are actually using linguistic landscapes as productive teaching material, turning teachers to use their linguistic landscape as teaching materials in the classroom. So in a way, I even developed that side project. And as I said, when you want to see something, you can see it from various perspectives, as long as obviously within the areas of your expertise. You cannot go. If you want to go beyond this, I don't think I have enough time to do that now, age-wise. But if you are in your 30s or early 40s, you still have a long way to go, and you can do that. Please look at these issues from a wider perspective. There's a lot to do in relation to your research areas as well. Obviously, the aim of this project is to promote teacher competencies, integrating ELF in multilingual classrooms, prepare learners to become successful communicators in the increasingly multilingual and demanding world. And we cannot deny the fact that Turkey is becoming more and more an immigrant welcoming country, welcoming, let's say, country. And because of that, we are having more and more multilingual learners in our classrooms. In some cases, they don't speak even Turkish, or you don't speak their language, and you may run into interesting situations. So maybe this should be another course that could be implemented in teacher education programs, bringing into this multilingualism concept from an ELT, English language teaching perspective. What would teachers, we can collect stories from immigrant receiving classrooms where teachers have to teach to those students. They are doing amazing things in those schools. Again, in relation to one of my seminars at Istanbul Öğretmen Akademileri, there were some teachers from these immigrant background classrooms. And I asked them, how do you cope with these students who are coming from Arabic advanced speaking backgrounds in your English classrooms? They told me incredible stories. Some of them are using another Arabic Turkish speaking student to communicate with them. Some of them are using their limited Arabic to communicate with them. And then they also said that these learners are very quick in learning Turkish, so that they can still communicate in Turkish, and sometimes teachers learn Arabic. It's an interesting cosmopolitan thing going on there, and it will be nice to do research in that area. Again, don't use immigrant as a word there, okay? If you do, you will not get access to classrooms. And I really appreciate classroom research a lot, which is the area where we should enter. You remember in our last panel at INGET conference, that was one of the conclusions during the discussions we came to. We have to go into the classrooms to see what's really happening. I think it will give us more food for thought, I think, in our future, maybe encounters. I'm not going to go into this. You can read them from the English web page, okay? This was the portal I want to show you. We had 30 sections in total. As I said, we had videos, PowerPoints, transcripts. We had lots of supplementary materials to help teachers to understand the topic. We had tutorials. We had mentors. Actually, I was one of the mentors together with Sezen Bektaş, one of the, in fact, research assistants in our department and research assistants in the project. And we had questionnaires, mentors, and so on. We had, in fact, self-study, reflection. We had forum discussions with the teachers. And this was, and the reason why it is in such a mess is because teachers can start from anywhere they like. It is not a linear course. This was another lesson we learned from the previous experience in ELFTED. In ELFTED, for example, everything was linear. They had to start from one topic and move on to the next, because we thought that was the right thing to do. And what we came up was the teachers, in fact, did it in a mixed order, and we didn't run into any problems with that. So this was one of the reasons why, in fact, we thought it can be flexible, so teachers can start anytime at their own time. But obviously we had compulsory activities and weekly activities, so they had to be in a way again, because during the lifetime of the course, we had to follow a kind of a schedule. So it still had some kind of enforced linearity, but that was the flexible. And we had a final assignment, and we had peer reviewing and the questionnaire. Okay, and almost 300 people enrolled. 249 were originally selected to participate. 76 did not carry out an activity, and 77 carried out at least one activity. And out of this 300 plus, 96 participants completed the whole CPD. So it is still difficult and demanding for teachers, okay? So as I said, it's very demanding. Time availability, COVID-19 and lockdown actually made some of the teachers suspicious about Zoom environment in the Turkish case. So they gave up the course because they didn't want to meet on Zoom. And you remember in the beginning, Zoom, people were suspicious of Zoom. So we lost some of our participants because of that. And if you can guess, do you know how many teachers wanted to participate in this project from Turkey? 166. How many finished? 15. Okay. We had to, because gave us strict instructions not to have more than 15 to 30. Okay, 30 was the maximum. So we convinced him to accept 66 participants, and then we had to push to reach the minimum number. I really want to thank Sezen for that from here as well, since this is recording. If she's here, she can respond. But if not, she really made a lot of effort. I mean, you can imagine, it says over here, meet with the teachers once every month or something. We met with them every week almost, because we wanted to, keep this motivation high and so on. And they were wonderful teachers. I will show you them in a minute. So these are some of the statistics from the countries, which countries. And in Turkey, obviously it doesn't say here, this is the participants, okay? And this is what we ended with at the end. And but who finished was 15 Turkish students, other people, teachers. The most teachers came from Greece because they also accepted people from abroad. There are also teachers from other countries and from Roma Tre as well. And they also accepted teachers from Pakistan and some other countries. Lisbon and Oslomet. Oslomet had the least teachers, and you see, we had the more teachers, but we ended up with almost the least number of teachers. But anyway, it was a very enriching experience. And this is some of the demographics of the teachers. Again, you can find them in the. And I want to share with you this one, and I'm finishing with my concluding slide. This is us from the Turkish context. This is, I think, what involves. In fact, what we would be interested in. This is our team. And we have Işıl Erdoğan is from Boğaziçi University Department. Sezen Baktaş is, as I said, was a wonderful teacher mentor who helped me. Hakan Şentürk and Feza Kerestecioğlu are again from our team, and they are, Hakan is my PhD student, and Feza Kerestecioğlu is a lifelong learner of English language teaching. I am, in fact, transforming him from an electrical engineer to an English language teacher educator, or I don't know, EMI instructor, I don't know. But anyway, you will see the effects in the future. So this is our team. And so this was actually in 2013, this is what we said. I found it from my notes, okay? In fact, in the next decade, this is where we are living now, teacher education will become an important issue, not only for ELF theoreticians and education practitioners, but for ESOL practitioners as well, so us. As we have seen, the strength of ELF research, together with the broader world English literature, that was it at that time, now we can talk about global Englishes, lies in its potential to challenge deep-seated convictions about the function of the English language, the roles of its users, and the pedagogical implications that this phenomenon can have. So this was what we said, and what we published in our earlier findings, interpretation of our earlier findings. It's not different from what we say in the definition I gave you a few minutes ago in 2018. So what we did between January 2020 to July 2020, actually, we had, it was 161 teachers who applied, and 61 was selected on the basis of their location, because we had to have a reference since they were going to come. We have selected them from Istanbul mostly. And in January 23, we invited them for a webinar, and we had our first webinar, and we started our journey, okay? And then on February 8, we had our first contact session with our participants. Although we had, 33 people who, in fact, showed interest in coming, we had 18 participants, and we had 3 participants online. This time we didn't have Zoom, we had Skype at that time, participating in that session. And over there, in fact, we thought we will end up with almost 15 teachers at the end, but some of these teachers didn't continue. Then we had on the 22nd multiplier event, face-to-face, and 226 people registered and 135 people showed up. Again, this was more than our expected number. And we had other contact sessions via Zoom starting from then on, and we had additional sessions. As you can see, these are the additional sessions, and we almost had a session every month with the teachers, officially with me and with the other members I have just shown you of the team, but with Sezen, I don't know how many times. These are our people and proof of our face-to-face and online sessions. And then obviously we sent them after almost in the middle, we sent them motivation emails, progress reports, individual emails, and we asked them to complete the final activities and the last reminders. And these are our dear participants. And I just wanted to, and at the end, we also talked with them about the final project. So we went them through actually their journey with the project. Okay. And at the end, 15 completed and they received their certificate. And one of the teachers from an earlier project again, for me, from first project, for me, ELFAware teacher is giving importance to communication and respect to other cultures. In my classroom practice, ELFAwareness has changed my students' attitude towards using a foreign language. As a non-native English speaker teacher, I feel much better and relaxed in using the language. Obviously, I'm reading as the teacher wrote, so it is the original. But what I can say from this is this project and the idea of ELF and ELFAwareness empowered teachers to feel themselves belonging to an English-speaking community rather than being a subject teacher to fill some gaps in the school curriculum. And they, in fact, saw their real role in English language teaching, which was turning all their learners into English language users rather than some students who will achieve success who will succeed in some standardized exams. And they, in fact, also saw that concepts like multilingualism or bilingualism go beyond some definitions that were, in fact, included in some theoretical books. So it gave them a lot of chances to practice their understanding of English and English language. And nowadays there are some trends like multilingualism with English, global English paradigm, and so on, which I believe teachers should be engaged in. And in any teacher education curricula, we need to take these into account when developing our courses and so on. And a recent development, this is internal, but I just want to give you one example from a certain department, in a certain university, designing a new course on literature for English teachers, including not only British or American literature, but also colonial literature, and furthermore, literature written in English, including Orhan Pamuk's writings, for example, as presenting to their learners. And the whole idea is to make them feel comfortable with using language by engaging in interesting and authentic materials. I want to stop here now. Thank you very much for listening to me. This is the half of my presentation, but that's enough, I think, for a Friday night. I hope this will be satisfactory for your expectations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yasemin Hocam. Of course, it's not enough for us. We would like to listen to you more, but I know you're tired. We're all tired after a very busy week. Before I ask the participants whether they have any questions or not, I would like to ask you one question. After your sessions or after your, should I say, training with these teachers, what do they do in their classroom to raise awareness on the students' part? Did they just talk about it?
Talk about, no. Yes, I understand your question. No, they actually experiment with the materials they use in the classroom. Okay. Like, I can give you one example from another presentation.
Please.
That
Yeah, I would like to see one.
Okay, one moment. Yes. Okay.
Don't hurry.
Let me share with you this.
Yeah.
Yes, Hocam.
People are thanking you and the chat box.
Actually, I opened the presentation if you want. Okay, maybe they don't want to see any more presentations. I just want to show you some materials, actually, not presentations. Okay.
Well, they are free to leave whenever they want to. Okay, so, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because when we talk about in an abstract way, I just fail to imagine what the teachers did in the classroom to increase this awareness on students' part. So that's why I wanted to see at least one example.
Okay,
By the way, your connection is not very good now, Yasemin Hocam. Zoom is warning us.
Öyle mi hocam?
Yeah, well, that's
Oh.
Zoom, if you're
Şimdi
going to believe
can you
that.
see me now?
We can see you, but you kind of like shooting the third Frozen movie.
Okay, one moment. Let me shift from this internet to another. Okay, one moment.
Okay.
Let me shift my internet. We have developed these ways of coping with internet. Okay.
Yes.
Actually, I will give you an example from my CLIL experiment. Okay.
Please.
Which I think will be more meaningful since it is a methodological approach.
Okay.
Actually, in that experiment, in that project, we are trying to find a connection between ELF and CLIL, okay? In order to show how, in fact, how much we are acquainted with ELF in the classroom that we don't realize, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working with an instructed SLA colleague in that, who is very strict about grammar teaching, for example. She cannot expect me to comment on this topic. I wish we can have another talk with her at some point to show our, kind of perspectives. Okay, now I opened it. It was in another, sorry. Am I all right now?
We can see you, but okay. Yes, you're...
Come on. Okay.
Right now we can see your screen, yes.
Okay, this is a presentation, in fact, I gave last year in a conference, Applied Linguistics Conference, and I wanted to talk about methodological considerations there. And I wanted to connect ELF to CLIL, and I wanted to look at how this can be realized, okay? So, in fact, we have developed, sorry, Okay, I will show you my office. Hay Allah. Sürprizden çıktı şimdi.
That's okay. Okay. That's okay. It will be a surprise for us. Don't worry.
Okay. So we had, in fact, implemented a CLIL curriculum at a private school with my ideas of this world English and ELFAwareness, and my colleagues Şebnem's ideas of how we can implement a clear grammar teaching, make sure that the learners are in control of grammar when they are using English, and so on. So, but she's very much in our line anyway, using English line, but still she had these concerns. So we tried to find a connection, and at the end, we wanted to go back and look at the kind of materials we used, okay? So, obviously, these are all clear information. I don't want to go into there. And then our ELF, that obviously what was cited. Okay, so we have done, in order to connect CLIL to ELF, we have taken Coyle's 4 C's. I'm sure you are familiar with this, okay? Like for successful language teaching, you have to, CLIL actually is composed of content, communication, cognition, and culture, okay? So how can we connect ELF into this paradigm was our, connection. So we thought we can relate this to ELFAwareness construct and see how we can realize this, okay? Okay, maybe we can repeat this, these 4. Sorry. For content, successful content, thematic learning is important for acquisition. So what do we want learners to be acquainted with in ELF pedagogy? We want them to be acquainted with naturalistic uses of English, okay? Authentic uses of English. And a CLIL approach gives us this kind of a context because over there, we want the learners to be engaged with content that they are familiar with, that's meaningful for them, in order not to cope with content only, in order to focus on language only, rather than coping with content. So therefore, this is one way, one place where we can connect it to ELF, okay? Because in ELF, what do we want? We want them to use English. In CLIL, what do we want? We want them to use English, okay? In content and in language integrated learning. So we can use this kind of an indirect approach to come to what we are trying to say in ELFAwareness. Was in a way, we were trying to prove this. I hope it is meaningful for you. Communication, again, what do we want our learners to do? To be able to use English. And language is a vehicle for communication. And in both cases, both clean and ELFAwareness approach, we want the learners to use language to communicate with people, to express themselves, to express their message. Cognition, engagement in higher order thinking skills. This is a little bit diverging from what we say, but still.
Just to, okay. Can we just focus our attention on the example, because it is getting late and I really don't want to keep everyone here. Just one example, because you all know what CLIL is, right, guys?
Okay. Okay, yes.
If you don't go home, study. That's your homework. I'm sorry, Yasemin Hocam. I can stay with you for hours. Okay, let's have a look at this example. Okay.
Hocam, showing this to your learners, for example. Showing this to your learners, okay? And expecting them to comment on this. This is a real life happening, right? And this is in a book by National Geographic for language learners. I don't remember exactly where this comes from, but there's a series of books, language teaching books. We use these in our project as well. And over here, what you are trying to show them is kind of their awareness of topics like immigration, people's changing places, and so on, and showing this and asking them to comment on it. And this is reality. Another one, this is about family. Okay, in this one, the topic is family, by the way. And what happens when there are wars? Families are separated. And this picture is, in fact, one example for this. Okay, and yeah, this is the topic. In this, for example, we can ask, what do you think about this picture? The topic is family. What's happening here? Like brainstorming. So the families are separated, okay? And what are they doing in this picture? You can find lots of things. And then you come into this unit, which is family matters. And then you can also talk about these people. And they can activate their schema in relation to these topics very easily. And that's our idea for fourth graders, for example, okay? And this is the materials that we are using. And we found, when we collected data from teachers, we found these were their responses were very much similar to the interviews we have done with the teachers in the other classrooms. I'm not saying there is some magical ELFAwareness materials that you can find and use in the classroom to raise their awareness. These are the materials that you have. And using some things that they are familiar with, family, unities, separations, and you can actually use this to come to this point later on, okay? Again, traffic, for example, is another topic that you can use. And you can relate it to, instead of giving a picture from London High Street or a crowded street in London, you can give a photograph from India, and then you can find lots of information coming out of this. Oh, where is this picture taken from? You can actually ask them so many questions. Where do you think this photo was taken? You can get them, and then you can come up with, yeah, it is India. Oh, it's like in Istanbul. Then you may even come up with students saying Istanbul. And then, no, this is not Istanbul. You can look at it closely and it's not Istanbul. And you can start talking about traffic, how it is in the world, and so on. I mean, bringing into the classroom more than what is in the course book, for example, where it talks about Jane and Jim is meeting in a restaurant and talking about traffic or talking about something hypothetical. That's what we mean, Hocam.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. One thing here, I don't want to advertise any language teaching materials here because this is an INGED video.
Pardon,
no, it's not related to you. What I was going to say is there is a publishing company and they really have very good, authentic pictures and photographs and texts that they use. However, as young learners, I don't want to call myself an expert. Who is an expert, for God's sake? But let's say, as a lover of teaching young learners, I would use more story-like materials for CLIL rather than these very heavy topics, especially if we're talking about grade 1 up to grade 4. After grade 4, maybe grade 5, when they become teenagers, you can move on to more realistic, real life topics. But let's not ruin their childhood, okay? This world is hectic, chaotic. The life is horrible. We also, but yeah, let them live their childhood. Let them play.
Hocam, this is an example. Extreme.
I know.
Okay.
I know. This is mostly for teachers who are with us tonight.
Yes.
And if they want to do something with young learners, they need to be aware of the fact that their cognitive maturity level may not be high enough to grasp some of these topics. They may get hurt because of some of the ideas. Young learners is a very, very sensitive topic. But I love these. Again, I can't give the name, but I love those materials because rather than taking a stupid or artificial photograph, they use a real, actual photograph, and students can find hundreds of different things to talk about those photographs. I love them myself.
Yes.
Okay.
Hocam, this is actually an example for, this is not a clear classroom, but this is the example from our primary school teachers. They prepared, for example, an international day. The topic was international traditions and so on. This was 23rd of April, Teachers' Day. So that month, in April, the teachers worked on a project. And they were first and second, third graders, the three groups. Mostly second and third graders were in this project. And they prepared. They were responsible for a country, and they were responsible to prepare. You see in the middle, they prepared actually a poster in the classroom. They presented to their classmates. And on the 23rd of April, they wore sort of traditional clothes of those countries. And it was an international day. And they actually had these kind of issues. And
they
these
look
were the
cute.
teachers. Yes.
They do look cute. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was a project actually that was realized as an ELFAwareness project for teachers. In the earlier work, the teachers were actually more into the Englishes, varieties of Englishes, and so on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think this example also clarified, that question that we had. Ferhat Hocam, did you want to ask a question? Is that why you unmuted yourself? No? Okay. I guess it was a mistake. It happens, because it only takes a click. Okay, another... Well, by the way, please feel free to write your questions if you have any. Another, I shouldn't say a question, but it's a kind of an issue on my mind. We Turkish ELT professionals have a tendency of misunderstanding and misusing certain concepts, like we did with gamification. They introduced the topic to us, and we immediately misunderstood it as using games in teaching English. And now everyone is giving talks on how to use games in English, language teaching, and they call it gamification. And it, of course, makes me feel so angry. Now, with this translanguaging, I think there is another huge misunderstanding and misuse. Can you please, very briefly, tell us what translanguage, because you warned us that it came out from North America, so we should also consider the context. Briefly, can you please tell us what translanguaging is? Hocam, you are muted. Can you please unmute yourself? I didn't do it, vallahi, Yasemin Hocam.
I can. I just want to actually okay, go back to my presentation in relation to this topic, because I want to give you some from our how we cover it in ELFTED project is, I think, very thorough. Hocam, give me a minute, please.
Yeah, of course.
Really
and meanwhile, I should warn you that Ali Fuat Hocam has written an article in the chat box as a question. So, you can never leave Ali Fuat Hocam alone.
Oh my God.
You see, he has already written and published the article there. Oh my God, Ali Fuat Hocam, you are
wonderful. He's wonderful.
he's something,
Yes, mashallah, Hocam.
Mashallah. His energy, right? So yes. After this translanguaging,
yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, here we are. Okay, Hocam. Now, again, another presentation. I don't want to show you, but this is actually more concrete to show. This is actually what we prepared for Enrich project. And in this one, actually, we have talked about translanguaging as originally coming from Welsh, actually the traditional one.
Okay.
So I don't know how to say it. It's something. It does originally, actually, it has roots. It referred to a pedagogical practice where learners were asked to shift between languages for the purposes of receptive or productive use. Now it is widely used to address the complex language practices of multilingual speakers. Yeah, in other words, it is actually, as I said a few minutes ago, you have different linguistic repertoires and you activate them in different contexts. So activation of Turkish in English language classrooms can be another example, but it doesn't mean that you are going to use Turkish all the time. Okay, anyway, the ability on our way to defining translanguaging, the ability of multilingual speakers to shuttle between languages, treating the diverse languages that form their repertoire as an integrated system. So if you, of course, Hocam, you remember from the previous earlier work of V.J. Coop, who talks about multi-competences, which brings into the SLA paradigm or ISLA paradigm a new perspective of what happens in the brains of, actually, it's not just the brain localizing certain languages in the brain, but it is over there. Everything is there. We, in fact, use these repertoires to communicate. I mean, you cannot say that you shut one down and then activate the other. Everything is all together in an interaction. So this translanguaging is, in fact, very much in line with this idea. I haven't found the connection yet, but this reminds me of multi-competence model informing these future developments of translanguaging into a field. And Garcia says the flexible use of their linguistic resources to make meaning of their lives and their complex worlds. This is again for multilingual speakers, people. And Baker says making meaning, shaping experiences, gaining understanding and knowledge through the use of two or more languages. So in the case of translanguaging, you have more than one language in your linguistic repertoire, and you use them flexibly in natural conversations. Don't ask me how you can differentiate it from the classroom translanguaging context, but I would find myself an explanation in multilingual classrooms where we have those immigrant kids or kids with other ethnic backgrounds and who have different home languages, which we don't have much research about. And we also try to distinguish between code switching, translanguaging. Code switching, we know more than translanguaging. I don't want to go into too much detail, but Hocam, because you said that, I think this is something important that we as teachers of English should be aware of. One is more conscious and personal, and this is more, the other is more natural. Hocam, yeter mi bu kadar?
Of course, of course. Would you like to read the article written and published by ELFAwareness Hocam? When you're reading that, I will just very quickly tell the participants that not recently, but like 2 months ago, I listened to a speaker who openly and shamelessly claimed that translanguaging means using Turkish to teach English. So it really drives me crazy. You know, these American people, they come up with all these crazy terms, translanguaging, and we somehow manage to misunderstand. And now people think that they have a scientific reason to use Turkish to teach English. That's why I wanted to ask this question of Yasemin Hocam, just to feel that I'm not alone. I'm not abnormal, you know. I'm just a normal person. I'm not an expert in this area. I only read for fun. But at least I know that translanguaging doesn't mean using Turkish to teach English, or letting students use Turkish whenever they want.
No.
Have you finished reading your homework, Hocam?
I finished. And translanguaging from a sociolinguistic perspective is more a natural phenomenon. Not in the classroom. You cannot actually... it is, and I would think that they should be at a certain level of proficiency to translanguage. Otherwise, the other doesn't mean translanguaging, in my opinion, the one you are explaining.
Yasemin Hocam, I love you. Thank you very much.
Yes, I read it.
Now I have several eyewitnesses and witnesses, you know. See? An expert says translanguaging doesn't mean that. Okay, Hocam, now it's your turn. It's time to answer ELFAwareness Hocam's question.
ELFAwareness Hocam says that since ELF or Global English urges us to rethink, revamp, and practices, how can we instigate change, innovation, without conceptualizing the whole? Do you mean without? Okay. Do you mean without actually referring to this indirectly, or by referring to this, or making it openly? I couldn't understand your question very well, ELFAwareness. Or I may misconceptualize it. Do you mean we can integrate it or not? Could you please clarify?
Sure, Hocam. I'm trying to say that, you know, and by the way, thank you very much for this very interesting talk, as always. My point is, because we're given a curriculum that we are not in the process of designing, and we're actually working alongside with colleagues who may be reluctant or who may be resistant to the idea of ELF or global Englishes, and individuals who are going out of this program are actually taking standardized multiple choice exam to be assessed, you know, to assess their pedagogical proficiencies, right? So my question is, how can we really instigate change? How can we actually promote change in a context like this where we have little control over, although ELF or Global English says, now forget about everything that you've been doing for the past couple of decades, and here is a brand new way of rethinking what ELT stands for. So that is a huge tension that I've been grappling with. So thank you.
I've been grappling with this as well, and we are in the same boat, as you said. And it is, first of all, you have to struggle with different mindsets, okay? And you have to face lots of criticisms from your colleagues in relation to what you are doing, okay? and you should first of all you should first of all accept being actually not being understood, first of all. So that's how I felt when I started working in this area. First of all, in the beginning, I didn't understand how I can integrate it into teacher education or even into English language classrooms, because I was giving lectures, presentations on this topic in conferences, but I wasn't really sure how we could do it. And I was trying to connect it through culture. And I was always thinking that English can be taught without culture because English belongs to the world. And how can we just teach British culture in the classroom and make our learners think that this is all about English language? That's where you will use English. They will use English everywhere. So, but I didn't know how to connect. So when I started doing this project, I was already ready for this idea of I need to find a way of integrating this into the teacher education programs. Okay, so at the first stage, because first of all, I had to make myself clear that what I meant was not challenging. So I didn't want to change the whole idea of training teachers to teach a standard, a particular standard of English, standard variety of English, which is usually British English. I first of all convinced them that I'm not against it. And then the second step was, they were saying, well, what are you trying to teach to our teacher trainees? Are you trying to teach them the conceptualization of English language teaching as teaching mistaken English? Because ELF is, when you say ELF, it doesn't necessarily, you are talking about like dropping of third person singular S in present tense, talking about pronouncing the TH sound without the correct place of articulation, lots of things. Are you crazy? How can you do that to your future teachers of English? And I said, I'm not trying to do that. This is not what I mean. What I mean by ELFAwareness or ELF pedagogy. So for 4 years, I wasn't able to implement any courses in the program. In 2016, for the first time, before 2016, of course, I offered elective courses, and in one of which Elif Kemaloğlu collected her data, and which was kind of reflection of what we did, transfer of what we did for in-service teachers to pre-service teachers. So over there, actually, we found out that it was even more difficult to transform pre-service teachers into ELFAware practitioners, but we could do it in mini steps, in small steps. In 2016, it has become an official course in our department. Okay, now we have English as a lingua franca aware teacher education as an elective course, tabii ki, of course. It cannot be part of the curriculum because we are not serving for future users of English. We are serving for future native speakers of English, as English teachers. So in a way, this was the second step. And it was the year when I went to Italy and taught a course on English language varieties, history of English language and English language varieties. And I could implement such a course into the curriculum as an elective as well, in, again, 2016. And I could teach that course, unfortunately, only once since 2016 because of the curricula that we have to cover as part of Higher Education Council's curriculum, teacher education curriculum. But I'm still hopeful, Alifat. And this year we have designed a new course to be put in our curriculum as a first-year course, and in which we are talking about globalization and English language, which will be offered to the whole university, in which we are going to cover topics like spread of English, colonization of English, and English as a lingua franca. We will realize it in different steps that actually is followed in, like we will start with David Crystal's, the steps that he talks about in his famous YouTube videos, if, as you know. And then at the end, we'll come to ELF paradigm after talking about uses of English, functions of English, spread of English. And we are planning to implement this. And obviously that's not enough, tabii ki. But that's what I mean in small steps. And there are some courses that are implemented in teacher education programs, as you know, like some elective courses like World Englishes and so on, but which has turned into World Englishes and Culture. This was not the idea. And moreover, in all teacher education programs, maybe this is not an answer to your question, but anyway, it's the beginning of your answer, maybe, to your question. Sociolinguistics courses should be offered in all English language teacher education programs. And history of English courses should be a part of the required program. It is more important than, I'm very sorry, don't misunderstand me, Amanda, but survey of English literature courses. Because in survey of English literature courses, what our students learn is British literature, history of British literature, and they struggle with it. And because they struggle, they turn into a Stockholm syndrome. It becomes their only target and aim in life. But if you take a history of English course, you know where English comes from and how English is spread around the world. And I mean, you start from the old English time. I took a course like that, when I was an undergraduate student. And I think why I became what I became today is because of that. And I listened to I took it from a British instructor, and it is, I think these two courses must be in the curriculum before anything else, Elifat. Very indirect.
Yeah, but maybe
history of English and
the history of English once was in the curriculum, if you remember. You're too young, maybe you don't remember that.
I was one of. Okay. I was actually in my curriculum, hocam. Ben bu dersi mecburi ders olarak aldım.
Okay, relax. Yasemin hocam, relax. We have nothing against that.
Me too.
What I'm going to say is, they don't only study British literature, though. I'm not a literature fan, but they also study American literature, and they also study Irish literature, I believe Welsh literature, and some Scottish works. That all depends on the professor who teaches the course.
Teaches the course, yes, of course.
So the perspective, the attitude of the instructor or the professor is definitely reflected in the course that they teach. Now, Kaveh Hocam has a question, but before that, Mohammed Hoca has written a question in the chat box. I'm going to shorten it and read it. His question says, is related to the model of language for developing language tests in ELF classes. I'm sorry. Shall it be a descriptive model? In other words, what is happening in the class? Mohammed Hocam, I believe that requires another full session. Just to see the actual classroom practice. But at least Yasemin Hocam has given us very short, brief example of what you can do in the classroom. How are you going to evaluate that? I guess that is a very long answer. So sorry, Mohammed Hocam, I don't think we have time for that. Kaveh Hocam, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Hello, thank you very much. My question is not that much far away from Dr. Professor Alavi's question. Yasemin Hocam, do you believe that in near future we will be witness to have some kind of corpus analysis in order to design some kind of multi-competence, let's say, or a new definition of competence for ELT, because we have got so many diverse members of practitioners and users of English, and are we going to redefine the competence of language assessment?
Well,
I'm
I guess it's again related to assessment, which means
Yes.
maybe we should have another session on assessment. Well, maybe
Evet hocam. Yes.
sessions, I should say, because assessments is, oh my God, we can never cover it in an hour. I believe Yasemin Hoca has given us a brief picture of what ELF is and how important ELF awareness is. And definitely within an hour, you cannot create a miracle and explain everything. By the way, Yasemin Hocam, Muhammad Hocam says he was your classmate.
Yes, of course.
So most probably he has all the gossip about
Yes.
you when you were a student at Lancaster University. Well, what I'm going to do, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to finish and the session here, if it's okay with you, because I can see that Yasemin Hocam is just about to faint in a minute because of, because you're so tired.
Thank you, hocam.
But of course, I mean, it was so nice. It was so full of fun. We just didn't know how to finish it. And
Yes,
Aysel
hocam,
Hocam is giving you a round of applause there.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully we will arrange another session maybe next semester. Why not?
Okay, hocam.
And we can talk about more practical ideas, more practical things that we can do in the actual classroom situation.
Yes, hocam.
So I really don't know how to express my gratitude for this excellent session.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone.
Of course, to my colleagues, thank you very much. You always support us. I know that. And you know our motto, together we stand, we keep saying. And without you, we can't.
Thank you, hocam.
So thank you very much.
Always there.
Yasemin Hocam, would you like to say your farewell? And then I will end the session.
Okay, hocam. First of all, Aydan hocam, thank you very much for inviting me and keeping the spirit of English language teachers so high in the Turkish context. First of all, I really appreciate and thank you for this. And for inviting me and giving value to different voices, different perspectives. I really appreciate that too, because it's very difficult, although I didn't completely answer Ali Fuad's question, but it is very difficult to survive in such a very strict context and to make yourself understood. But it's, important to have these kind of meetings. And in the next meeting, actually, I had lots of questions and ideas after this meeting, which maybe if we have another chance to meet, we can have examples, real life examples, maybe bring some teachers to talk about it. Maybe we can have a kind of a teacher colloquium where we have actual teachers. We can have all scholars together so that we can talk. And for assessment, I'm not an expert there, as you said, almost expert, but I gave up. But this actually, because I was about to be the PhD student of Muhammad Hoca's instructor, Charles Alderson, dear Charles Alderson. So I gave up because he was a very strict instructor. So I have to admit it here, confess it here. So that's why I became what I am today. I chose a different direction. But anyway, I still follow that. Thank you very much. I want everyone to stay until now. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I kept you so long, but it was a very fruitful meeting for me too. Thank you. Have a very wonderful weekend and the rest of the evening. Thank you, hocam.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye. Take good care of yourselves.
Thank you.